Maybe it is invented. Maybe it is just invented.
I don't think so. I can't.
So
bring
you're
myself.
really on the discovered bandwagon.
I think it's just
It has to be.
it's just
What do
something.
you mean it has to be?
It's something we found that we said prescribed meaning to. It's like, audience, you can't see me, but I'm holding my phone right now. It's like, this is my phone. That's my phone, you hear? This is what we perceive it to be. But like, if you gave this to like a caveman, he doesn't know this is a phone. To them, this is just a shiny rock. You know, what we know is what we perceive. And we can discover things, like the caveman can figure out or be taught that this is not just a fancy rock, this is like a phone. Or we could devolve and say, this is just a fancy rock with fancy electricity in it. You know, everything is our own perception. So, but as far as as far as invented, it's like we discover something and we utilize it. We discover something, we prescribe meaning and thought into it, and then we utilize it. That's how tools are. That's basically what tools are.
So you think tools are discovered?
Tools, yeah. You found some sharp rock and realized, hey, this sharp rock can cut things that this dull rock can't. So,
I don't know. I think certain tools are invented. I never found like a wrench when I was just walking around in the forest, you know. There's like certain things that maybe the general makeup of it was found naturally, but you have grabbed it and created it. Like you've built something for a purpose that wasn't there before.
you know what? He has a point.
But listen, I feel like this is a difference between the ever expanding. I want to put it in kind of universe terms now, because that's the way I think of it. It's like a glass of water, or you pour water into a glass and it's taking the shape of that glass, versus a loaf of bread with raisins in it, in a way. You know, like one of them is kind of fitting the mold, or it is expanding. The breadth of knowledge we have is expanding for our needs and the things that we have to do to evolve technologically, whereas the other one simply is already doing so regardless of what is surrounding it. You understand?
That's just the physics of water, of liquids and solids, Pete.
Okay, but
It just kind of sounds like you're making it seem like, so if there was ever a possibility that it could have been, it was discovered instead of invented.
Actually, no, wait, Pete. I'm gonna blow your mind, maybe. It's like, what if someone before us, like, invented, like, rocks and stuff, and all that stuff that we discovered is actually some guy's leftovers, and we are just, like, figuring it out ourselves. Like,
We call that person God,
yeah, I mean, well, as far as we know.
as far as we know.
But what if some thing created everything, and we're just, and that would mean it's invented. This is kind of like a sub-genre of your creators destroyers conversation. It's like, was the world like made, like invented, or was the world just kind of brought to existence and we're just haphazardly bumbling around figuring stuff out?
I mean, if you're looking for an answer for me right now, obviously I can't tell you. I mean, we can't empirically determine that.
Yeah, I
obviously.
think as it stands right now, I think it's kind of both. Because, like you said, that wrench example, I think, is a pretty good example. We invented the wrench, obviously, but the physics behind the wrench, like the idea of, like, holding something together, we kind of, like, figured that out. You know, we observe gravity and all the science behind the world, and we're like, wouldn't it be great if we had, like, a tool that utilized the principles of the world, and I use it for this specific thing?
So then we've just applied that into it, and that's how it came to be. Still
Kinda.
discovered, though.
Kinda, yeah.
Or you're trying to make the case for invented, right?
I'm trying to make definitely the case for invented. I'm just trying to come up with a really solid case right now.
Because we did invent the wrench. Like, this phone, this wasn't nature. I didn't walk. I mean, I did walk into the store, but I didn't, like, that store didn't just happen to, like, find this phone. It was made. But, like, what was it made of? It was made of a bunch of shiny rocks that we figured out were pretty useful for electricity and stuff. And Steve Jobs figured out that this glass on the screen is pretty cool, so he used it in his phones. And my case, someone figured out, it's like, people don't like dropping their phones, so let's make a case for it. Like, everything was, like, figured out. Like, someone dropped their phone and we're like, hey, it broke. It's like, well, what if it had, like, a casing around it? Wouldn't that be cool? So then they made a case. but they made a case based on like their perceptions of like what they know.
So I'm gonna be a math major for a second and go back to the definitions of things. So
Okay.
if we define things as discovered, like what is something that is discovered? It is something that existed before without human intervention. Is that how you're defining discovered?
Yeah,
Just
essentially.
existed.
Yeah.
Okay. And then invented is therefore something that was just created by you, imagined by you, done by you, with no external input.
If we go
Isn't that
with
impossible?
if we go with that definition, then both are valid, because there are things we did not invent, we just stumbled upon. Definitely humanity has had a bunch of lucky accidents happen in its favor, but then there are stuff that we did invent, like because they didn't exist, we brought it into existence. So in that regard, I'd say both exist in our reality.
So what's an example of something we've invented? Like no discussion had to be invented.
The silicon wafer, for instance.
A knife.
Didn't you make the point before it? There was just a sharp rock and people learned how to use it though.
But then we started making sharp, nice knives for steaks and such.
IKEA bought knives.
Yeah. Like a table. We used to sleep on rocks, and then we figured out, wouldn't it be pretty cool if we had like a nice rock, or maybe not a rock at all, maybe some wood, or maybe not even wood, maybe some cushion of sorts, like a sofa
On
cushion
top of the wood.
on top of the wood. It's like, and wouldn't it be cool if the cushion was made of like leather, Corinthian leather? It's like,
Wouldn't it be cool if you used memory foam? We can just take this to higher
Yeah, we
levels
could
of
just go
abstraction.
anywhere with it. Yeah, yeah.
no, the
But
point
that is the point, yeah.
Everything started from something, and that something, my argument is that something was found. We didn't make the original something. We took that something and made stuff. So in that regard, we invented stuff. But the original thing we found, and we said, hey, this is pretty cool. Let's use it. And
See, my gripes with the question are the fact that it's asking to compare an umbrella versus one of its subparticles, you could say. You know, like the umbrella term is that everything is discovered, and then what you described, he just logically proved that invention itself, in and of itself,
stems from
it is something that
discovery.
occurs as a result of discovery. Discovery is the fundamental point at which you start, and then you can invent because of that discovery.
I think that's true.
I'm in agreement with you.
Prove me wrong, I dare you.
Well, I don't want to because I agree.
That's why I'm so
Audience.
quiet over here, believe me. My gears are
Audience.
turning. I'm just not getting anywhere.
Your gears are
Audience,
turning.
prove me wrong, I dare you.
Well, think about it. Once again, I'm going to go into the glass filling mold versus the raisin bread. You can't really invent something that you don't know anything about. Because all inventions prior have come as a result of some kind of fundamental knowledge. You know, when we take things to higher levels of abstraction, it is because we already have some kind of schema of the world and how those things operate.
Sigh.
Well, like Newton, literally, you said it in the beginning. Newton invented calculus because he already decided that algebra was stupid. It was not fundamental. It was not enough.
Or he just didn't like it,
Yeah,
like most high school students.
yeah.
I'm just
but,
kidding, I love algebra.
But he goes and does calculus because he already knows the problems with algebra and where it falls short.
Yeah. He's pretty smart.
I always think back in terms of calculus, at least. I keep thinking back to like objectively, I think math is hard. I don't know about you guys, but I think math in general is hard and
Dude.
complicated, and that's why people hate math, because they're like, that's all it is. It's hard nonsense.
It's hard if you don't get it, which nobody gets it.
Yeah.
But like, let's just say that math is hard, just as a point, right?
Yeah.
Then like, wouldn't there be an easier way? So like, imagine that I told you, like
just-
if you want to make a left instead of making a left to go around the block, like make three rights, exactly. Like, what if there's just an easier way to do what we're doing?
It's life, isn't it?
I always believe there is an easy way.
I fully believe there's
Easier.
a better way of doing math.
I mean, there's
But then would that mean that we've therefore invented the other way of doing math? Or that it was also just discovered that there's another way to do it?
I think discovered.
What?
Like, you discovered it through trial and error. Like that's weird. It's like, did you invent it because you experimented, or did you just discover it from haphazardly doing a bunch of stuff and being like, I figured it out, eureka?
I mean, you're merely talking about the process there, whereas
Is the process a process of invention or discovery, or both?
why are you doing this?
That's the thing. Like I think all three of us have agreed the origin of invention was discovery, but is invention discovery?
Well, no.
But like, what about cures for diseases? You figure out the combination of all that stuff. That combination always existed in the realm, in the sense that that combination was always going to cure your disease, but you didn't know it at the time. You just kind of kept trying to mix stuff up and like test it on the disease on a rat or a petri dish and figure out, like, does this cure the disease? We kind of need this. We're dying over here. And then you figure it out and you're like, I did it.
I don't like that, because you start entering the thing where it's like, if it is possible, then like that's it. There, you can't give anything original in this life.
I mean, you're the one who discovered it, so you get to be like, I'm the guy. That's your original stamp on the thing.
But like that means that you haven't actually put a stamp on anything. You've just found something that was there. Like if I stumble into
Finders
the woods,
keepers.
no, that's not how.
Well, can you define original? Because if you've done something, of course, if we qualify the invention as something that resulted from a discovery, then yeah, technically it is unoriginal because it's based on something that already existed. But if it's something that we didn't know about already, like it's based on something that already existed, but it's not something that existed before in its own self way.
Like the wagon to the car.
Yeah.
You had a
I
four-wheel
think those
vehicle.
were an invention.
They were.
I think the wagon and the wheel were an invention.
The wheel wasn't an invention.
I think they both were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my argument is, like, is the car an invention or is it just an upgrade? You just attached a motor, which you figured out, onto a wagon, and now it's moving on its own without a horse.
So upgrade is no longer invention.
It can be, if that's like it's
If that's how you want it.
It's all a bunch of fancy words that we have attached meaning to. If our meanings are different, then of course the answer will differ between person to person. I choose not to think that we can't invent stuff. We can make stuff like podcasts that are pretty cool and original. But as for like what it was, like I didn't like, for example, I'm really into video games, and as I've always repeatedly said, I'm striving to make a video game. I didn't invent video games, but I can still like make my own, if that makes sense. So I think like innovation, I like definitely now in the modern era, I think innovation is the era of modern day inventing, is in the realm of innovation. Do something that already exists, but do it even cooler than the other guy, and prove all those former people that you are the superior one. And then you get old, and then some other young guy is going to do that to you, and the cycle continues. And eventually, maybe we'll find out math was never flawed to begin with.